In the bottom right, we have herO for DKZ. The top left, it is Cure. This series was played like 3 weeks ago. So, Cure vs. herO has happened a bunch since then, and some of it is very one-sided. But I don't think this was. Or if it was one-sided, it was one-sided in individual ways. I'm not sure. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I saw the number of replays and figured that it was good. So that's basically a bit of a spoiler, but I don't know who won, so there's that. In the top left, Cure, Babylon being the map as well, and yeah, Cure is pretty freaking dominant right now in TVP. 3 weeks ago, he was still as dominant, I would say. Certainly well, I think he's literally the best TVPer, even though everyone's pretty good at it nowadays. And he seems to only, continue to work on that as the weeks have gone by. But he was definitely one of the best 3 weeks ago. But herO, I think, was still kind of on that, he'll be good again. He'll come back. He's still really good. And then this might have been right before GSL or right around GSL, in which case, spoiler alert, herO did not do very well in GSL at all. He kind of bombed out in the round of 16. It is MaxPax who's currently leading the charge as far as the highest placing Protoss in tournaments. So, trying to avoid any serious discussion about who is the best Protoss in the world. Does it matter if MaxPax has not gone offline? Blah, 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 blah. By just saying, factually, MaxPax gets farther in all these tournaments that are happening than herO does. But herO, still one of my favorite players, still has that same type of Protoss play that I think makes Protoss really good, if they are going to be good. And that is a lot of different builds and a lot of different styles and very unique choices. Unique sometimes being good and unique sometimes being bad. But the point is that it is different. So, whereas some other Protosses are barely squeaking by here with very standard defensive Protoss play, like Showtime still wins a couple of best of fives every now and again, I just don't know if it's really the truly best way to play. We already have a little bit of a difference watching this Zealot slowly go across the map. No scout from Cure, but Cure did go for Reactor first, which would have been dangerous if this was some type of proxy gate right off the bat, but is basically not dangerous to, like, anything else. As far as scouting any follow-up, like, oh my god, am I getting DT rushed? You basically assume they're going to have a Nexus, and that's correct. And then you probably have something like a drop to look at the follow-up. But yeah, it actually does really well against some of these very early, but not earliest attacks, because you just have a solid amount of production. Compared to one Marine and then a Reactor, or one Reaper, then a Reactor, where the Adept, Zealot, Stalker thing kind of can find a moment to overwhelm. In this case, no real moment to overwhelm, just a little bit of fancy footwork with the Micro. Kills a Marine that was low on health, looking for the second one, using the Adept Shade as the high ground vision. herO's not going to actually let up on this aggression, seeing as there is still no bunker. herO figures this is still worthwhile. Cure doesn't really need a bunker, and that's why he's not getting one. But if there was one, I think this would just not be possible at all. Oh! Lovely move from Cure. Lovely. I actually did not realize what he was doing. I did not realize that herO was going to fall into that trap. But Cure actually moved his Marines off to the left, so herO thought he had moved them back. So he went up the ramp, and then Cure tried to trap him. That was pretty cool. Didn't actually kill the Stalker, but still pretty cool. And now Cure is going to go for a bunker, because there's a real possibility, that a 4-gate's on the way, and he's going to need a bunker at the front anyways. And he's going to need to reduce the amount of units that he's losing. But it's not a 4-gate. It is actually just a 2-gateway expand, so herO is going to be working his way up to more of a macro game. Now, how much of a macro game still is TBD. But what's unfortunate for herO is that while this was all very fun, all this micro, didn't really add up to a lot, and it certainly didn't punish the overall build that Cure is doing. Because Cure really is just making the fastest path to stemmed bio with medevacs possible. And that sounds good, but it would have been weak to something like a 4-gate plank. He would have no tanks. He would have very few units. But as it is not that, Cure is getting a 5-ish minutes, 5:32 drop attack heading into the main base, which still isn't enough to end the game usually, but it might be unexpected. herO has not gotten too much scouting in the main. He saw the factory timing, which would probably be a little indicative of the barracks timing. I believe it was barracks, factory, wasn't it? So he might be able to figure that out. Now the observer sees the full extent of Cure's main base. He still doesn't know the medevacs have already left the station. One stalker looking out for this. The other stalkers were in the main, but had moved out at the exact wrong time. Now gonna kind of try and get back to the main before too many probes die, but yeah, unfortunately those stalkers could have been just a tad faster. Maybe saved 3 or 4 probes. Instead, 7 go down. Both medevacs are able to escape. And Cure will be able to threaten not just with this double medevac drop in the main, but whatever else is coming out, right? Like, that's it's not all the bio that Cure is ever going to have, so herO needs to make sure that he's got his army split correctly. He's got one stalker scouting. It's not going to stop the medevacs, of course, but herO needed the scout to know if the medevac's trying to leave, and then enough stalkers to probably gun down these weakened medevacs. An observer to the far left is most likely a mistake at this point. Probably meant to be like here or something like that. But this observer sees the follow-up bio and knows that the other bases are safe for now. He's actually going to go ahead and track it as Cure takes the 3rd base on location. herO's moved on to Charge, but also moved on to Templar Archives. Now, he's got the Templar Archives, but he doesn't have a Storm. I hope he doesn't mean to have Storm. Can he actually defend this next attack without Storm? I don't think he can. I'm not sure about this one. Shield Battery Overcharge is going to have to help out. So far, the bio all collected together is just going to take the easy wins. So killing the Gateway, killing 7X Core. And 7X Core obviously access the Stalkers, so no more of those. Warp Prism did go across the map, but herO really doesn't have a lot of resources to go ahead and invest to defensive zealots and offensive zealots. herO waiting for Cure to pull the trigger to kind of get a little bit of a surround. Scan reveals the extent of the army. It's not really the biggest army, but Cure is still respecting his shield battery, still respecting the possibility, I think, of more units as well. Can you get the replays here? You can only get the EPT weekly replays if you are an official caster. So you'd have to apply. A little bit of a zealot run by, unable to stop the 3rd CC. It's a whole other chunk of bio that could be going across the map at any point. herO will survive now, but the supplies are still really telling the tale. I mean, herO, he must think he has Storm. There you go. Storm's finally on the way. Chrono boosted as well. I mean, he definitely couldn't afford it when he was first being attacked. Could barely afford it when he did get it. Did prioritize building Archons for the attack that was underway, which makes sense, but I'm looking at the overall supply. And this just does not bode well for the Protoss. If the Storm isn't here in this attack to literally win the game, herO is in a lot of trouble. And even though we do not have ghosts, I don't know if this actually is capable of winning the game. There's a 20 armor supply deficit for herO. He's down an upgrade. His Storms aren't, I mean, they're not a Warp Prism, but I guess they're kind of still protected anyways. There's no EMP, so they don't need a Warp Prism, I guess. That is so much bio. Decent amount of medevacs as well. Here comes the Warp Prism now. I mean, the Warp Prism isn't just defensive, it's actually offensive as well, getting that Storm into the heart of the army, but Cure's split was good enough, and the supply is still dominant for Cure, who is now bathing in the Storms, but nothing is there to actually get that final killing blow, especially because there's so many medevacs. Cure actually did very little in terms of engaging his opponent, so he didn't sacrifice medevacs, he didn't sacrifice health and then have the medevacs drain for the eventual attack. This was a fully fleshed out Terran army that was fully healed, reacting to a very obvious Storm play, so he didn't just run up a ramp in a huge ball and get blasted, right? And yeah, Cure is definitely going to win this game. He's going to be completed with Ghost soon. Even some Vikings to help tear down the Warp Prism, but then in case there was a Colossus transition, he'd already be working against that. No way in hell herO could afford a Robo transition. He's getting his 4th base, but this just feels like a terrible game for herO. It kind of felt like he was supposed to zig when Cure zagged, and then it went the reverse, and then herO was left kind of awkward, and Nothing really had a lot of spice to it. Assuming that Cure does play well. Then yeah, he was gonna win. He did play that well. Now the robotics transition is on the way, but only one robo. Not going to be particularly quick about adding on those Colossus or Disruptors. A couple of SCVs have died from all the Zealot run-bys, but I think the Zealot sacrifice for it has not really been worth it. The Ghost died. When the hell did that happen? But here we go. Main attack on the way. Probably the game-winning attack. Now a 2-upgrade lead for Cure. herO's +1 attack might finish up, but that means that his Zealots will be paper. They will not be able to hold on for very long. And one of the best things to have with that +1 attack is a Colossus. Well, that isn't here yet. So, pretty much basic gateway units, out-upgraded. No splash to help out if these EMPs keep hitting. The shield body overcharge is going to get sniped, so not going to be able to contribute either. Widow Mine's helping against some of the reinforcing Protoss units. EMP popping a lot of the Immortal shields. Some storms do go down, but you can see that the army is still hanging on here. More Zealots get warped in, and the Immortal is still trying to pack a punch against the reigning Marauders, but that's not really going to do it. It's not going to cut it. Kier is going to win game 1. Pretty dominant fashion. herO not looking nearly as feisty as you would expect. It's kind of a wet noodle. He got one. It's not even wet, actually. You know, because like a wet noodle in a swimming pool actually kind of hurts sometimes. It's really heavy when it's all full of water. He's a dry noodle. Although I guess if you're thinking about like spaghetti noodles. I don't know what that actually is. That saying is supposed to be spaghetti noodles, or it's supposed to be like those water noodles that you play in with the swimming pool? Because I always imagine that. I feel like I'm 32 years into my life and I just realized they're talking about spaghetti noodles. Anywho, GG, Cure wins game number 1. In the bottom right of game number 2, it is herO. In the top left, it is Cure. The pool noodle meta. Yeah, alright. Well, a wet noodle is supposed to stick to a wall, right? A dry noodle can be used to poke someone's face, someone's eye out. What's the worst thing you could do with a wet noodle? A wet spaghetti noodle. Burn someone? Yeah, I guess if you like immediately took it out and threw it at them. They cool down pretty quickly though. Stuff it up their nose. It'd be uncomfortable, but I don't know if it would really do anything drastic. So I guess that's why it's, you know, it's a wet spaghetti noodle. Dry noodles have some form of murdery intent. I'd really someone needs to actually experiment with this. How dangerous is a dry noodle versus a wet noodle? But I definitely always think of pool noodles. And I still will think of pool noodles. I absolutely will. Because those things aren't supposed to hurt. But apparently during the break, we learned that if there's cracks, they can get the water in them and then they become heavier. Because I swear I definitely got smacked with a couple when I was younger. And they hurt when they were in the water. But outside of the water wasn't that bad. Although I guess it probably also depends on how much, like, real oomph someone's putting into smacking you with it. And as the youngest child, with both of my siblings being elder brothers, I was probably getting hit pretty hard. It's probably more so some, like, trauma that I'm unlocking in my brain right now. Another Zealot coming out first. This time, Cure actually does a scout. He's going into a Reaper Marine opener, which, again, is like, it feels kind of weird talking about how this could be less good against the Zealot Adept Stalker aggression, but it really has to do with a slight difference of timings of production, right? So a Reaper is pretty good against Zealot, no argument there. Everyone knows that. But it might not be good against the Adepts, and then has to run back, then the reactor's building, only one Marine's here to help out. If there wasn't a bunker being built, you could see how this actually could snowball as the Adept races across the map, having guarded the Zealot against the Reaper. But because it was an SCV scout, because there's a bunker, I mean, there really is there's no problem for Cure. At this point in time, herO is kind of wasted the resources. 100 minerals in the Zealot's not going to do anything. Adept decided it's not even worth going across the map for the most part. Stayed at home to stop the Reaper from jumping up. And then now might try and go and get a scout. But that would be his only job, is to get a scout. We should have a pool noodle party for science. I agree. Let's get one going. I'm not going to do a hot tub stream, but I'll do a pool noodle fight stream. Since density of a wet noodle would only increase up to the one of water floats. Wow, there's some real science coming in to the chat right now as we dive deeper into the wet noodle theory. Science! The Reaper might be able to grenade itself over. Not even gonna bother, because I think he saw the Twilight Council anyways. It's kind of the downside. Oh, no, he didn't. Okay. I was gonna say, that might be the downside of the pylon placements and how big their range is. But no. I just figured because there's been at least 2 other games in the last week in which I've seen the tech building scouted with this similar pylon placement. But technically, Kira does not know what's going on. He certainly doesn't know about the natural getting all of its gases currently, so we are going into a pretty quick 2-base, I'm actually not sure, Colossus build? Yeah, Colossus build. Off of the Blinkstalker opener. Now, I think this is actually one of the worst ways to play as well. It's not even that much better to me than like a Robo first 2-base play. But obviously I'm much worse than herO, so he's gonna do magical things with it. I'm featured in the StarCraft streamers lifting. What happened? What did I do? Isn't it like some like weird AI video shit? Because I don't know if I want to be about that. I'm not going to watch the video while I'm casting. You got to tell me what happens. Anyways, it's not going to be 2-base Robo. It's 2-base Storm, which I still think it's all the weaknesses. But basically, whenever there's a real drive... Oh, what a mind drop. No, not going to shoot. Whenever there's a real drive to a 2-base high-technology Protoss type of play, it really does limit the amount of aggression they can display or fake out. And their economy is not, like, I feel like that much better off for it either, right? They did emphasize the additional gases and also additional probes needed for the gases before getting the 3rd Nexus. So, I mean, I'm definitely biased against it. Impossible to tell. You know what? There are literally robots designed to, like, audio describe things in movies. Okay? So that blind people can figure out what the hell's going on. So, like, you know, I think you could do it. I think you got this. Which, by the way, I have not found a way to turn that off. I bought the D&D movie on YouTube, and I was gonna get all comfy and watch it, and then I kept hearing this lady's voice be like, then she takes off her hood, and I was like, what the hell is happening? I have no idea how to turn it off. It's only that movie, too. Other movies I bought are fine. Anyways. Enough talking to Twitch chat. We do have a Raven looking for harassment. It's gonna scan the main. See the stalkers waiting. See the gateways forming. The Wood of Mine drop in the natural. Did see some stuff. Didn't actually see the Templar archives. It's additional gases, so... for Cure, I'm not sure actually what he's thinking either. Oh, that starport's way far back there. I guess he didn't want to be scouted. Because what does herO know about the build of Cure? Very, very little. Very little. Clearly, it was a Wood of Mine drop of some type. Just one Wood of Mine, but still. Probably the 1-1-1 into the 3 racks 1-1, right? And that's how that goes. This wall coming in does, to me, look like someone who's very aware of a possible charge lot storm attack. However, that's not what herO is doing. I actually would have made it would have made more sense if he had started off with charge and gotten storm and then a 2-base all in. It would have been kind of weird, kind of old school, but also just kind of bad. But I don't know. I would have understood it. And I think that's what Kira's thinking too. Kira just scanned the 3rd base and it's like, oh, it's defensive. Okay. Because again, herO has not really seen how defensively set up Kira is, so I don't think herO changed his mind. This is literally herO's opener. Was Blink 2-base Storm. It's pretty unique. And while sometimes we can talk about how confusion ends up really negatively affecting someone, I would say PvT, specifically for the Terran, I think confusion hurts Terran the least, is how I'm going to put this. Like, Terran basically gets up to Bio and is like, what up? Protoss, you know, they got to figure out what exactly to get their army units in. They do have better tech choices than others versus certain all-ins. Zerg, obviously, the drone versus army building is terrible for them. But as far as Terrans go, I feel like we can build up to a decent army on 2 bases, even if we're confused. And so when we figure things out, we're really not that far behind. So I'm just saying this, not just to prove that Terran is super overpowered, of course, but also to talk about the supply gap again. Kier is ahead 20-30 army supply. He's going to have the EMPs. hero's going to try and fit in a Colossus transition before he's attacked, and, well, that actually might work out. I mean, if anything, the effects of hero's weird opener would mean that Kier is not attacking in the same type of rhythm as he usually would. So if he's not attacking, maybe hero could actually get away with a little bit of greed. That's what he's trying to do. And he actually goes for an offensive High Templar feedback, which you don't see too often, but 4 medevacs now out of juice. Should be considered. That is going to impact this next battle. That's a lot of storm right there. That's a good one. And again, so much of the energy's already been feedbacked, so you're just draining one medevac at this point. That is a huge difference between this game and the last game, even. You know, if the last game everything was overstimmed and medevacs were dry, yeah, hero might have won last game. So we're seeing the effects of that as the storms continue to come in. A lot of the army is injured. Medevacs can only help out so much. We got shield battery protecting the natural. Colossus coming in from the third, and it's kind of all over the place. And if it's really favoring Kier is once again more storms come in. That was like 6 storms, right? Is that a 7th storm? Kier getting AoE'd all over the place. And without that medevac energy healing consistently, he is down to just the remnants of his bio army. More reinforcements come in, however, and hero should not be engaging too far outside of his 4-base setup. But it does look like he has held, thanks to a bajillion and a half storms. Okay, that's weird. One of mine's gonna continue firing off, I guess. No observer, and that scan just revealed no observer, as well as whatever is reinforcing in the natural, seeing as the robos have not produced anything as of yet. Kier regroups, moves in for the attack yet again, and has been equal upgrades this entire time. But you could definitely see that if hero didn't have as much AoEs, if they didn't have that many storms, Kier would have probably already won right now. I mean, that was just an amazing number of storms. Every time Kier thought there was no more storms left, there was one more. That's how Protoss gets you, man. But Kier has still had some decent unit retention, has certainly reinforced with more medevacs, and of course is on to the fact that hero has made a successful transition over into 2-base robo. So you don't get away with necessarily pure ground army anymore. Perhaps some Viking production would do well. Love the repair and all the air units. Love it. Observer loves it too. Observer's just perving on everything. Missile turret actually revealed that. I like that missile turret. All right, so 2 Colossus, not really having anything to attack into them. That's really enough for Marauders, and a really perfect concave would probably be able to take on that army, but it'd be kind of sketch. +2 attack finish up for hero, so he has an upgrade lead for maybe 45 more seconds. His 4 bases have remained relatively intact. There was some probe damage from the battles earlier on, but only 7, I think. Starts up 3-3. And hero looks to be in a good position. Certainly better than the last game. And certainly better than I was giving him credit for before that fight happened. Again, half the amount of storms. And I think Kier literally wins right there. But yeah. 4th base on the way now for Kier means that it's certainly not super favored to one direction or another. In fact, I think it's probably still Kier favored, actually. Just because Kier is Kier, and he's really good at TVP. But a 20 army supply lead, not really all that shocking for late game TVP. An upgrade lead for the Protoss, not really all that shocking for PvT. You know, it's pretty even. Kier is now divvying up his army. Kier really has impressed me throughout most of his career with his TVP, although it's being recently once again highlighted. Remember 4 or 5 years ago watching him split such armies in 2 or 3 different armies, actually. And while doing that with bio and medevacs is one thing, and it's like, you know, you could probably do it as well. I believe in you guys. Doing it with ghosts and Vikings is a completely different thing. And then controlling it well is also the real kicker. So he's going to be EMPing, he's going to be focus firing, he's going to be splitting like he did over here, while also having another army usually doing the same thing. In this case, not so much. He takes the 5th base cancel, and maybe over-engages. That was clearly not going to work out for too much longer, but once again, Widowmine's getting some nice shots. And this army will be pushed back, but it's certainly not all of Kyr's army. Upgrades are once again even as well, by the way, for another 40 seconds. herO moving across the map, splits up his army, maybe intentionally? That might have been unintentional. Still is controlling the Warp Prism. At this point in time, I'm also going to give a nod to the Protoss mechanics. At this point, ferrying the Warp Prism High Templar combo with your Stalker micro, Disruptor micro is a little difficult. Would I say it's more difficult than Ghost and Viking control? I don't know. Maybe. The Warp Prism is pretty difficult to control, actually. I certainly mess it up every single time. It is certainly a battle of mechanics. Both of them have one of the more ideal armies, although right now the upgrade... Oh, the goodbye Warp Prism, never mind. Not going to impact this battle. And that was not all of Kyr's army, more of it coming on the right side. herO almost biting off more than he could chew. He saw the look in his eye, he saw the gleam in his eye. He was like, oh, the army's trapped, and another army came in. Not going to tackle that. But yeah, herO losing the Warp Prism, not getting that initial engagement, and then forced to retreat back is all good. He did have a 3-3 upgrade lead. Or no, 3-2 actually, my bad. So he had a 1 upgrade lead right there, but... that was starting to look better for Kyr. The Vikings getting some initial shots in the Colossus that were miscontrolled. The Warp Prism is gone, so now the High Templars are pretty easy to EMP. Not to mention the rest of the army still has to be careful about being EMP'd. Being emped. Can we just say that? Can we make it a thing? Emped? Maybe. 5th base has been secured for a while for Kyr. 6th, 7th orbitals on the way. Additional starports, +2 ship weapons, as well as Liberator range. No, actually, no fusion core. No, he's got it. Oh, he just finished it. Okay, so eventually he'll have Liberator range. Scans going down every which way to track the army. Both of them are trying to still hold on to that map control. Usually at this point, I would say the Protoss gets it, but there's actually been no point in time where herO has comfortably been able to bully Kyr and have Kyr just, stay at home. Rely on Liberators. And that is not so easy for the Terran player to do. It's far easier to just stay at home, get into Liberators and say, I'm safe and comfy. But Kyr refuses to do so, still divvying up his army, trying to find avenues, and splitting as well, saving his ghosts. What a god. But there is that transition, which, a lot of times is defensive. A lot of times it is the Terran player beat-bop between their 3rd and 4th, trying to catch the Protoss as the Protoss goes la 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 la. But it can also be used offensive. If Kyr does find a really good position like over here and then sieges 4 Liberators on top of everything, that's going to be really difficult for herO to push back in a cost-efficient manner. So I'm sure Kyr's thinking about that too. Unfortunately, not thinking about getting the Liberator range. And he certainly has the resources for it, so he's just forgot it. He has forgotten it. What he hasn't forgotten is making sure to always attack in one place while defending in another. This army went back to that planetary, chilled out for a second, and then dove right on into the next as soon as it was apparently possible. But it looks like herO is not going to be deterred because of a couple of Liberators. He actually pushed in regardless. All the Colossus will fall to the Vikings, but who the freak cares? The Archons and the Stalkers and Disruptors on the ground busted through Kyr's defense. And Kyr might have killed a Nexus, but he lost most of his army. This army also, without medevac energy, is going to sim itself to death if Kyr is not careful. Do we have more Liberators? Yes, we do. On the high ground, starting to siege up. Really missing out on that Liberator range, however. But there's not really all that much reliable anti-air. 4 Stalkers, by the looks of it. Archons have T-Rex arms, so they can't really help against Liberators. And I guess it is kind of a full-on base trade. 2 Nexus have been killed. Now we're going to get a command center killed. Yeah, that's so far favoring Kyr, I guess, but the army supply is a little concerning as mass Stalker was produced back at home. Now Kyr is down 20 army supply, but he does have extra bases. He does have the top right base. Does Kyr... Oh my god, Kyr does actually know about that. He might be figuring it out now, but yeah, he did not know about that. Vikings are unnecessary anyways, but they would have been useful to at least try and run by or something. And Cure is in a little bit of trouble. He lost that one orbital, saved his natural, but isn't doing a whole lot of mining. And if this base were to be taken down, it would be really, really, really tough for Cure to survive. This base might just be taken down. +2 ship weapons on the Liberator is still a lot, but without that Liberator range, they are just a little more vulnerable than they should be. The amount of bio is also not as convincing as previous, and the medevac is actually not as convincing. Medevac count, 5 medevacs now, that would be a lot better, but Disruptors took down a whole group of armies, so you can't heal something that is one shot, unfortunately. And the Liberator's now facing the wrong direction. Cure is going to try and redirect them, but into the Stalker. Well, actually, the Stalker's not focus firing. Hello, a lot of Stalkers just went down, but it's overall worth it. herO is the one still ahead on the army supply. These SCVs cannot repair. There's not enough minerals. Oh, if he had a bigger bank, that planetary might have just held on indefinitely, but Cure is out of resources. 1 planetary is all that's mining. And he's about to be out of army. Storms coming in despite those ghosts having EMPs. The trickle of buy units really not working out favorably against herO's army. The 2 Colossus really holding on the backbone of this attack, so that these little marine trickles aren't really doing a whole lot. Finally, Liberator sieges up again, but herO's gonna try and skirt around it? Oh my god, you madman! He does kind of skirt around it, gets under it, kills it. The planetary, once again, the only thing between life and death for Cure. But he's not even repairing it this time around. Jumped on top of the Colossus. He will be able to grab both of them. Maybe the last Marauder shot. Oh, yes! That one Marine actually got the shot. But it doesn't really matter. herO has bases mining. This Liberator is not actually denying the mining that's supposed to because it doesn't have Liberator range! And Cure is down to just the planetary. He still has 5 additional orbitals. Don't forget his main and his natural lived. Sorry, 6. There's another one in his main. Good lord. But he's not mining anywhere. If he had sent an orbital, I don't know, back to the left, he might have been mining kind of sneaky sneak. If he had taken heroes, he might have been mining sneaky sneak, but he has not. And Cure's lack of Liberator range is still incredibly troublesome. I mean, seriously, I think that really would have helped him in so many battles. The extra shots, Liberator range, let's hypothesize, is a guaranteed extra shot from a Liberator. And they're 2-shotting Stalkers, the best unit against Liberators at this particular point in time. With how many Liberators have gone down since that base trade, can you imagine how many extra Stalkers would have died? And with no Stalkers, herO has no advancement? That's a huge difference. Not to mention that one Liberator that finally got taken down would literally still be denying mining. I blame Liberator range for Cure losing this game. I really do. Because he is basically losing it. I mean, herO isn't exactly rich, but he is rich enough. Orbital is not going to burn down, and this army might be taken care of. This would be a nice grab for Cure, but here's the rest of herO's army. Yeah, Disruptor got a hit too. Orbital lands on the left side, and it can drop a hell of a lot of mules. There must be so much energy. There must be. Unless he just muled there, and then it all died. And now herO. He's got probes every which way. He's got 3 Nexus up and running, and he is mining way more than his opponent. Here comes the flood of gateway units. No medevacs to heal up the bio. Medevacs could have been a real difference maker in this battle even, but they are not here. And that is going to be it. Took a lot. Took a lot to kill this guy, but herO is going to win game number 2 after a pseudo base trade. I blame Liberator range. GG. People trying to get me drunk every single day. It's not how the human body works. The top left, we have herO. The bottom right, it is Cure. I definitely can't get drunk today, as Cure sends out an SCV aggressively. Because I am going to be playing a basketball game in about 3 hours. And it'd be unwise of me to show up and vomit on the court. Especially because there's only going to be 6 of us for 5v5. 2 of our subs. One has an Achilles heel issue, and the other one has a apartment that got mold in it, so they had to move out. So, oh, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Anyways, 300,000 for a singing stream. I mean, I could add that if you guys really want it. I don't think I'm that great of a singer though. So we get the 2 racks on the way for Cure. He's getting 1 gas at home, but that could just be follow up. I mean, it's gonna be Marines, but the probe's gonna scout it. Yes, indeed, yo. Gonna scout that it is also 2 racks, not just a single racks. Where am I gonna be losing basketball? Rude. Yeah, it's a rec league. I do usually do predictions for live games, but as these are replays, the chances of people actually knowing what the results are and abusing their knowledge is pretty high. People do random ass things for imaginary internet points. So Cure, after being scouted, just cancels one of the barracks. He did have enough gas from the 1 gas to get into a Reaper proxy, and that's, I mean, it's kind of as good as, you know, it's really not the biggest of deals. That was a fairly far along barracks, so it was one of the more painful cancels that a Terran would have to do, but it's really not that bad. The Reaper proxy still provides aggression, so the Protoss can't immediately capitalize on a lackluster defense at home, and they might even still lose some probes. It's really not that different from a 1-Rax Reaper expand, except that the expand is a little bit later. That's the punish there. So 2 probes go down. A little bit of bunker repair to further extend this annoyance. Second Reaper was created, and is actually going to go home. I guess he's worried an Adept or a Zealot might be running across the map. Unfortunately, there isn't, so Cure could have continued being more aggressive with 2 Reapers. Not that he'd ever kill a Nexus, of course. But with 2 Reapers, you could kill a growing pylon. Growing is like a plant. Building pylon. Or a shield battery, which hero's not going for. Hero is going to try and break out of this eventually with just some Stalker production. With the SCV being so low, it's inevitable, but it's not exactly nice. The second pylon not being down here is quite a pain. His hero thought maybe that the guy wouldn't do it. You know, he was scouted. You don't do the proxy afterwards. But there you go. Finally, the bunker is going to have to be salvaged, and actually doesn't get salvaged, so ha-ha, 100 minerals down the drain. The Adept did shit across the map, but Kier brought the other Reaper back home after sending it back home. Wait, no. Sent it back across the map to the Protoss's base after sending it back home. So it's a weird timing. It's a weird timing. One wouldn't mind will stop 1 Adept. That's no problem. 2 Reapers still looking for more probe kills. They could probably get 2 or 3 more. There's 1 headed into the main base. Usually there is a stop on Protoss army production as the warp gate transfers. So they're trying to find that. That would be great. 1 more probe, 1 more probe. Nah. Misfired anyways. So the scout goes down. You see that's a Twilight Council build, but you don't see very much else. Now the Reapers are both dead, so your follow-up scout's going to be the Wood of Mine drop. That should still be able to tell you if it's a Nexus or 4-gate, but if it was a 4-gate, it'd be a really weirdly timed one. So, yeah. You can pretty much assume that it's going to be an expand. 1-gate expand, actually. It still goes down not all that much quicker than like a 2-gate expand because of all the damage. Channel points to bet on the outcome of your basketball game? Sure. You could do that. I mean, I think the fair... I think the better call would be on me losing, but, you know, maybe other team's really bad. Maybe my team's really good without me. No Fear Dragon. Alright, so Cure is going for, what is he going for, actually? Just tank defense so far. He doesn't really have to defend. There is a Nexus. His medevac is yet to scout that. Which, I guess, means, I mean, it would not have been a 4-gate. The 4-gate would have been so late. But it could have been a 2-base build, since herO does some weird 2-base builds. So Kira is playing defensive, thinking perhaps of that last game, and the potential that was. His medevac drop is yet to really do anything, and is being so far guarded. It is going to be another Templar Archives coming down. Off the 3rd base, though, I feel a lot better about this one. I know he won the last game, but still. And the, interesting choice of Kira to go for some Banshees. I think what is probably going through his head right now is that he doesn't know what his opponent's doing. He has to play defensive, but if he plays nothing but defensive, it's not going to be a very pretty looking game for him, because what if herO's not doing anything aggressive? Oh, adept in the natural. Brutal. So he's going to try and add in Banshees to both get scouting and a little bit of pressure, which, you know, it might actually do some damage. One's already out, second one's about to pop, so far unscouted. Stalkers in the main aren't actually all that dedicated, by the way. herO does have 3 bases. He's moving on to Storm. Is he, though? When he has the resources for it, I guess he will. Stalkers, again, trying to do some harassment, even almost... It looked like almost purposely, once again, trying to get the tank to shoot the SCVs. Maybe yes, maybe no. Medevac drop with the Muda Mines comes in. herO's Observer was scouting this, but the actual Stalker movement was not there. So, okay, 3 probes go down. But I'm also thinking about those Banshees. Observer is at home, but how many Stalkers are at home? Not too many. 2 Banshees, one-shot all these probes. They're going to get to work. herO obviously noticed the Shimmer pretty much ASAP. But needs to get the Observer over here, and needs to get the Stalkers, and before all that happens, so many probes will die. And that's what happens when you don't see the Banshees incoming. 18 probes. herO is going to, Kira is going to sack the Banshees. Basically sacked them. 22 probes go down. The surprise Banshee is working out brilliantly. One more killed before the Banshee goes down, and herO, well, I think was in a really great position, is now in a much, much worse one. Fortunately, cleans up the Wood Mine drop without any more damage. But that was exactly what Kira needed. Otherwise, Kira wasn't really doing a whole lot, right? He was sitting back on his heels, he was fending, herO was going to be allowed to do whatever the hell he wanted, double forge, 4th base, Colossus transition, and Kira was still going to be so far behind, because was Stim canceled? Did I just completely miss that? I think I just completely missed that. That's what the Stalkers did, they canceled Stim. So Stim is only just begun. I mean, if they canceled Stim, it took a long time for Kira to restart it. Right? He was that focused on micro, I guess. Well, the point is, he's not attacking. He literally will not have an attack without Stim. So he's got to wait for Stim. So he'll have, like, 6 ghosts before he has Stim. So you really need to do some damage. 28 probes killed in total. It's going to set back herO a Nexus Plus. He still hasn't recovered. Oh, SCV, SCV. Actually, a very, very last-second pull saves most of the SCVs that were injured from many of the earlier attacks. I love it. Storm drops are cool, man. But that wasn't really an effective one. And it looks like Kira's at least partially on guard against this. Having a missile turret prepared pretty quickly after that. 2 in the main base. Doesn't really be bothered by storm drops or zealot bombs. 3rd orbital is done, and now herO would really love to have already been on a 4th base, you know? But I would say he'd still be okay if he was getting to a 4th base currently. He can't afford to do that and go into his double robo. So double robo first, then 4th base. He would have had all of this already done if it wasn't for 28 probes with the damage. So the Banshees were literally exactly what Kira needed to make this an even game. We come in at minute 10 and this looks like nothing, potentially nothing has happened in this game, right? But many things have. Now that Kira has... Oh, no storm drop. Again, not the best one. Now that Kira has Stim, Medivacs, Bio, and EMPs, he probably could move out. Doesn't really know what he's going to be walking out into, though, despite the damage. The scouting from that damage done from the Banshees, from the Wood Mine drop, was a minute ago at this point. His only other scouting is... Oh, another Wood Mine drop? When did that get out here? So yeah, he doesn't know what he was walking into. Scan to kill any would-be observers. He is moving across with a leading Wood Mine. Trying to at least see what's about to attack him. What does herO have? An almost even army supply. Even upgrades currently, too. Disruptors have popped out. That scan reveals it. And now you at least know where herO's army is, right? And he sees probes mining, transferring, so he knows that 4th Nexus isn't done. He's going to try and get in position to maybe even kill it, but is it going to be a good enough position? Disruptor's not hitting anything, and the tanks actually sieged up so preemptively are getting a lot of shots before herO could really grab anything in return. Here, making a huge move for himself. Now, herO's really going to gun it, but the War Prism goes down immediately. EMP blankets this very bunched up Protoss army, and this was a terrible engagement. My god. Terrible engagement. Woof. Also going into an upgrade deficit, too. I mean, herO just was not going to be winning with that particular engagement. That's very clear. Perhaps he needed Zealots on the backside. Perhaps he needed that freaking War Prism to actually stay alive. But the point is, that was super one-sided. 50 supply difference now as Kier dominates this game number 3. I mean, eventually dominates anyways. It was certainly a bit weirder earlier on. But now it is no contest. herO just hoping for Disruptor Ball to get the perfect strike. The tanks are even kind of safeguarding Kier a little bit from that perfect strike. Kier still dies on top of a couple of Disruptors, but successfully kills them, so more power to him. The Zealots try and take advantage of the misplaced Bio army, but only kill 1 tank. There's the second one, but costing the Disruptor shot, right? And the Disruptors are the only thing that herO has. GG. Kier will win game number 3. So you guys are really depending on my teammates. Do I know all the rules? I do know all the rules. In the bottom left, we have DKZ's herO. In the top right, it is Kier. I did play basketball for basically every year of my youthful life. From age, like, 7 to age 18 or something like that. Which sounds more impressive than it really is. It was like, you know, two basketball days a week. For 1 season. Like, the hoop upgrade? No. Shoop the whoop. herO beating Kier is like Geralt beating Cyril? No. That's a little extreme. Come on. herO might be having some trouble right now, and overall Protoss are having some trouble. Oh, two gases starting things off. But herO should still be capable of taking games off of Kier. Theoretically, Geralt should never even take a game off of Cyril. He did beat him once, though. But herO going for a 1-base attack. What exactly the 1 base will be, I'm not sure. 2 years ago, I would have immediately called the Void Ray cheese, but it's not what it used to be. I'm betting that bench was warmer than any bench ever. God, you guys are so good at burns. Jesus, calm down. I was actually well, I wasn't very good, but I ended up being a point guard for a couple of my teams because I was the best one on the team. Now that means that I'm either good or decent, or everyone else sucked, and I'll let you decide. It is a proxy Stargate. What the heck? Is he really gonna Void Ray Rush this guy? Is he really gonna Void Ray Rush in the year 2023? Of our Lord, baby Jesus. Proxy Phoenix? That wouldn't make much sense. I mean, certainly Kier has no idea this is on the way. This time around, Kier did not fully... Oh, okay, he has CV scouted. Oh, he thinks... I see. Okay, so herO does do double gold base on this map in particular. So Kier sees no Nexus, goes, oh, okay, I know what you're doing. Scouts the gold immediately, but it's not that. And now he's starting to scratch his head a little bit. He still hasn't scouted the proxy Stargate, and he's not thinking about it because it is the year 2023, and Void Ray Rushes don't even work in ladder games anymore. I actually don't remember the last time I've been proxy Void Raid. It's an Oracle, but you're going to need to do some serious damage with the Oracle to make up for, so far, nothing done to the Terran. We are still only at 3 Marines because Kier was so unsure of what the hell was happening. He didn't add on a reactor. So he doesn't have typically what at this point in time would be 2 Marines at a time. 3 Marines are not killing Oracle. This actually might just work. This is gonna actually work, guys. 1 Marine too short. Oh no. You think that Oracle doesn't have a lot of juice left. Okay, good. It's like every time you're like, well, the Oracle's almost out of juice, and they kill us with bajillion SCVs, and you're just pondering life at that point. But no, it did only kill 3 SCVs, or 2, I think, and then the Adept killed another one. So far, Cure is technically handling this, you know, and herO is still very much dedicating to aggression. He needs to do more damage. Supply Depot shouldn't go down. And now with the Cyclone out, the SCV shouldn't be punished for repairing that Supply Depot. 5 SCVs in total killed, minor stoppage on the SCV production. herO still only on 1 base, about to finish his natural. I'd say this wasn't enough for herO. Does he have a growing Oracle count? 2 Oracles and a Phoenix. He's gonna lift the Cyclone, and then do a bunch of damage to the SCVs. There you go. Well, the Oracles are still so... oh no, this one has a bunch of juice. Never mind, that one's the fresh one. That one is the fresh one. Uh-oh. Cyclone does get Graviton? Graviton? It's Graviton Beam, isn't it? Gets ungravitoned. Gets unbeamed. And will once again deter the major damage done to the SCVs. That actually was not as problematic as I was giving it credit for. So herO still hasn't done enough damage, I would say. But he certainly has forced Cure into an awkward position. I mean, Cure's still not having a reactor on his barracks. Looks very awkward at this point in time. 3 Cyclones also will not really be the best against a potential 4-gator, which herO, again, is not going to 4-gate, but he does have 3 gateways before going on to that 3rd Nexus. So he has now the option of not really producing a lot of probes and instead producing nothing but Stalkers, which still might be able to bully someone who's primarily defending against Oracles and a Phoenix. Again, like 3 Cyclones against 6 Stalkers, okay. 3 Cyclones against 9 Stalkers, a little sketch. But I'm just saying what Cure is potentially afraid of, because we know that herO is not dedicating to any form of attack. He might have the gateways, but he doesn't have the robo. So he'd have to... well, I guess he could still use his Oracles for high ground vision, but he's not being aggressive. He's going to go into Templar Archives. Cure is going to be allowed to breathe, but he still has 3 Cyclones that... overall, in the context of a PvT, going into minute 6, 7, 8, 9, are not all that great. Gets ungraviolied. Gravioli, roly-poly. So herO finally ahead by okay amount of workers. He still want to be up by 8. Currently only up by 4. But he has... advanced his technology. I assume he's going to get Storm. He's got the resources for it. Oracle's checking around, seeing potentially what Cure could do. I mean, if Cure knew for a fact that his opponent was playing this way, he might have been able to use his 3 Cyclones to do some obnoxious damage. But... you know, that would obviously be sketch. Just another warping of Stalkers would have made it so the Cyclones weren't very good. I'm going to tell you that the European Union okayed merger. It's happening. Watch them do nothing with StarCraft, and it is just another monopoly that we've created. Womp, womp, womp. Anyways. So Storm and Charge are finally on the way. herO has so much scouting with these Oracles that he can really easily tell if he's going to be attacked or not. So that's why he maybe delayed it for a little bit, wondering if there's some type of 2-base early attack, saw that there was really no movement from the Terran player, and said, okay, Storm, Charge, more probes it is. I would still say that herO really isn't all that far ahead, and in fact, maybe not ahead at all. It's still a very even game. But I think with this type of game, the pacing that has been set, it's more awkward for Cure to try and do anything against the guy. And a lot of the previous games, you know, like the last one, Banshees really helped him out, because he was so late to getting to Stim. In the game before that, there was a better early game so that when the storms came out, Cure could actually help defend. This game, if Cure tries to move out to a 3rd, under threat of being attacked by Charge, Warp Prism, Storm, his army's not really that impressive. He certainly doesn't have EMPs. The Raven could be a big difference maker, but then it also could be feedbacked, right? So it's not going to be a very confident-looking Terran is kind of what it's boiling down to, despite herO having what is now a supply lead. That is because herO is investing so much, because he figures that herO is too afraid to really do anything. And even if he tried to do something, big stasis trap, it's not out of the realms of possibility for herO to do a warp in and save the day at the very last second, because it's not a very big army. Bring the tanks, bring the Cyclones, bring the Raven, work it all together. Could be okay, but again, could also be a disaster. Runs face first into a storm, face first into a feedback. Cyclones aren't really usually helpful. The later a PvT goes, you know. So herO, 4th base, 70 probes, double upgrades on the way, transitioning over into double robo as well. Handling a Viking that ran across the map? Okay. Should be good to go. The timing of this should be very on point for herO. They do have vision of the units that get stasis warded. With point guard being strategically minded, are you technically playing a real-time strategy game? If you add a timer to chess, does it become real-time strategy? Yes, right? So yeah, I guess so. We all know that basketball is all about just hogging the ball and shooting as many shots as possible, though. That's how people play basketball. Ball hogs who shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot are the equivalent of people who micro their Reaper to kill 6 probes and bank 2,000 minerals. Uh-oh! Warp Prism does get locked on, like the one thing the Cyclone could do, it did. Locked on with no punishment, like that wasn't supposed to happen. Oracle gets taken care of too thanks to the Cyclones, and these Cyclones are out to prove me wrong, man. The stasis trap fields are hilarious, but they're not really working either. 3 Widow Mines caught. Better than nothing, but not really stopping Cure's continued advancement. Still has a 20 army supply lead. Behind upgrades, though, and moving into someone who already has 3 Colossus. That ain't good. Tanks will definitely have to siege up to give Cure a chance. The Raven is still intact, which gives a big chance to Cure to actually win this game right here, right now. But only if the Raven gets the Interference Matrix. And goes for an anti-air missile instead, which was, you know, frankly safer. But that means the Colossus would still be in play. 2 tanks are still really difficult to handle. And the army fight's really not looking all that fantastic. herO had so much of his army coming up from the backside, but it's weirdly timed. However, here's army is starting to look a little weakened. Once again, all the storms coming down to ensure the deaths of the units. Not just weakening them up, but actually killing them meant that herO's back attack army, that I would still say is completely off-timed. I think that was actually not looking so great. It actually ended up working out. herO's army just took too much damage from the combined power of Colossus beams and storms hitting it, so that when the rest of the army finally arrived, it could actually kill everything. So it was still not the most beautiful engagement ever. It was a fair engagement, and herO is ahead. His 5th base is done. All of his upgrades are going to finish up. He still has all this production to rebuild, so 2 robos still cranking away here. Kira is the one that has fallen behind, especially in terms of those upgrades, with only +2 attack on the way as herO finishes his 2-2. And now with herO having 5 bases, able to both remax and probably fit in some harassment, Kira has a lot of things to worry about. Did Kira mess that up? Perhaps. Actually, if Kira had realized he was being back attacked, he could have run backwards, killed the Gateway army, and then perhaps dealt with the Splash army, if you will. But, that's one thing you give the credit to the back attack army, was that it was off-timed. So he didn't know it was on its way. And hard to make those types of decisions in such a fast-paced game that is StarCraft. Scan reveals a very complete Protoss army. Only 1 Disruptor, but still. High Templars to worry about in the Warp Prism. The Marauders looking to tank the Storm, but then herO wisely did not engage. Here was clearly prepared to engage. Doesn't mean he's gonna win it, but it's not gonna be the best possible engagement possible. +2 attack is also gonna finish for Cure, leveling out the upgrades a little bit, which is nice. Observer finally joins in to help out with a Widow Mine, so that might have actually been the real reason Cure continues to live. Don't want to be running into a potential 16 Widow Mine field without knowing about it. 3-3 is already on the way for herO. As Cure still not starting up his +3 attack. He only has so many resources. He is about to be maxed out, though, so he should be banking soon. And yeah, I was going to say, you might want to emphasize that +3 attack, which he finally did. Got around to it. Storm hits the Stalkers, not the High Templars, and all of Cure's army was rushing to defend the 3rd orbital, so it was all types of packed in. Lots of damage done from those storms. I will say, herO is the only Protoss in the last, I don't know, year that I've seen use Warp Prism Storms throughout a PvT, and it is working. He's actually going to bust on through here, force a victory by the looks of it, even before his upgrades are done, but just realizing that Cure's army was too injured from the previous battle, says, yeah, I'm just going to kill you. GG. Game number 5 on Altitude. In the top right, it is herO. In the bottom left, it is Cure. And I really think the reason that herO is winning the games that he's won is because he's continuing to use the Warp Prism with Storm. Not only that, he just seems to always have Storms in his pocket. Which sounds kind of obvious, you know? Like, why aren't Protoss players doing it? But honestly, most of the time, Terran's players deal with it better, I would say. You know, it's a real high skill cap thing. A Terran defending the Micro-Ring Warp Prism. Both players having to show a lot of... what's the word I'm looking for? They have to show a lot of, knowing something before it's about to happen. Precognition, something like that. They basically have to kind of understand how the other person would play, right? Where the Warp Prism would go and then where the Ghost would go. Some kind of issue. So it's not without its potential, but the Terran players definitely have an easier job EMPing the High Templars than I think the Protoss have microing the Warp Prism with High Templars and microing the rest of their army. And that's why we don't see it from many other Protosses. Intuition, anticipation, gumption? Not quite gumption, but yeah, all those words. I mean, I don't mean to accuse Cure of being bad either, to be super, super clear, because that just means it could be twisted to make me sound like I'm saying, well, Cure's just not good enough to deal with it. Like, every other Terran's dealing with it, why can't he deal with it? Foresight, that's the great word. That's it. Anyways, but no, it's just, I think it is possibly something that is not done often enough that Cure's kind of shaken off the rust and is like, wait a second, okay, let me deal with this a different way. And then herO, well, certainly wasn't able to display any of those type of tactics in his most recent PvTs. Again, this was about 3 weeks ago. So something is not actually totally viable for what herO is currently doing in this series. Either the actual control of that late game army remains kind of undependable, it's very difficult to control, or his early to mid game is not working out as well to get him to that point to begin with. And I would kind of lean towards the latter, I suppose. The more I think about how Protosses usually die, it is a lot to the first mid-game attack. So unless other things go all types of topsy-turvy, you know, Protoss aren't necessarily getting to that point. But I would say that Showtime usually gets to a mid to late game TVP, and I don't think I've seen him actually experiment with Warp Prism, High Templars. And while he's not the fanciest Protoss player, the most micro-oriented player, make no mistake, he definitely can use it. In fact, I think about 2 years ago, Showtime was almost exclusively using Storm Drops. But anyways. Can't quite give you the answer, but this is, I would say, some of the only games I've seen in the last couple of years where the High Templars are not a stopgap, maybe is the right word, where literally they're created just to make sure you survive the mid-game and then you move on. herO is actually continuing to use them even afterwards. Phoenix opener, first time in this series. Phoenix Colossus. Robo is on the way. Gases should be following up soon as well. Cure has gone into a 3-racks, which actually really complicates matters. 3-racks is defendable, but you know, theoretically everything. But any Protoss player, I believe, would tell you that one of the more difficult builds to hold a 3-racks is the the Phoenix opener. Now, this is the first step to defending with a Phoenix opener, is actually scouting the damn thing. Some Protoss players, temporarily forgetting the 3-racks is an option, will keep the Phoenix at home, preparing for the almost inevitable Widowmine drop, and then they don't scout the 3-racks, and it's like, oh, hey, what's up? So that's the first part of defending. Second part of defending is usually grabbing an Immortal, a shield battery, of course, and if you can't do that, maybe sentries for force fields. It looks like herO... I'm actually not sure why herO is defending like this. So he's grabbing 2 shield batteries. He's gonna force field. He gets a Warp Prism first. The Warp Prism first seems very dangerous to me, no? The attack is already underway. Kier did not wait any longer than it required to get stimmed to move out on the map. Although he's not gunning for it. He assumes because he was scouted that the defense is there, which, you know, I think it is. It just, the Warp Prism first really is sus. I'd be scared. Well, it looks like an easy defense so far, although not able to defend your 7X core, unfortunately. That's going to go down. herO's got a Warp Prism. A Disruptor was being built. Did I imagine that? I'm pretty sure Disruptor was being built. Colossus is on the way now. The Warp Prism is being used to chase after the army, which already stimmed once. Stim again. Doesn't want to stim again. Bunker is coming down as Kier realizes this is some really weird Protoss play. This guy could actually be attacking me. Like, what the hell? I would say, fortunately for herO, he doesn't actually attack. 'Cause even with the Warp Prism able to reinforce, we're not talking about very good units. Warp Gate units. We're talking about slow Zealots, not even Stalkers. And if it was Stalkers, they don't have Link. So, unless there was a Colossus in that Warp Prism, herO really wouldn't have much of an engagement. But Kier's respecting it. Kier's respecting the weirdness of herO. It completes the bunker. He's gonna get Vikings first. So he saw that Warp Prism. He saw the speed on the Warp Prism. He knows that it's going to be used to be aggressive, and he's gonna go ahead and just immediately defend that, which will leave his ground armies vulnerable to being overstimmed, but it's a 2-base robo player. Like, there's not gonna be a lot of army to overstim the bio. So the Vikings first, really good idea. herO, I mean, I love the experimentation. When was the last time you've seen a Colossus drop from anyone but Nina in the North American regional? But I mean, that there's a reason that no one really does it. It's very difficult to find the appropriate amount of damage and relatively easy for the Terran to counter it. Because even if it's successful, even if it finds someone who doesn't have Vikings and gets to kind of run around a little bit more, it doesn't usually do all that much damage. Scan kind of hitting around the natural and third to see the third nexus or the army. I believe scouted the lack of third nexus, but that's because it's going up in the top left. Not sure what else it scanned. Unless I again imagined it. Third TC on the way for Kier, as he is comfortable just building up at home. He certainly is very comfortable. And because he knows it's a 2-base Protoss, I mean, he's not really going to be under the gun anytime soon. If the Colossus tried to come across the map to be a big old bully, his tanks would cover him. And then if it's just Colossus to defend, which, by the way, it's not even really Colossus, well, then that means that Kier doesn't really have to move out anytime soon. He's still doing the Terran thing and building up a bio count. I said it's not really Colossus, but there is 3 Colossus. There's just no extended thermal lance. I thought he only went up to 2. Okay, so it is Colossus, but he's missing a rather important upgrade. Going into charge, that's fine. Not really with a whole lot of Phoenix. No, 5. They've been dancing around, building up, I guess, over time. Keeping them at home now. He just forgot extend thermal lance, you think? Maybe he thinks he doesn't need it. It's not being attacked. Scan mode just caught an observer. No, actually. Thought there might be an observer there. There was not. All production went into those Colossus. Phoenix are now trying to be aggressive, and hallucinated Phoenix are coming out to get the full scout. Seeing a very well-defended Terran is a good sign for now. but a bad sign when this army comes across the map. herO's army... I don't actually think is all that complete. Phoenix gonna run in, try and kill some SCVs, and we'll be successful at that. Akira's gonna have an upgrade timing. He's gonna have Ghost to deal with the High Templars. Again, if, they hit the EMPs. He won't have that many Vikings, but he will have 4 or 6. No extended Thermal Lance. I don't know, I just like the Terran army better, I think. It's just nothing really is a lot... Nothing is happening really for herO. He dives in, kills 11 SCVs. That actually just gives him barely the worker count that he wants compared to the Terran. It wasn't actually a big devastating blow. Kira thinks he's about to be attacked. He's building a bunker, which he of course could then use just to defend the third base, but he's playing very defensive, just building up the army.
Mineral field depleted.
I think when he moves out, it'll be pretty freaking good though. Unless it's a perfect engagement from herO. So Storm's right in the center of the army, Zealots on top of the tanks, and Colossus murdering Marines. Anything else, though, the Zealots don't jump on top of the tanks. The EMPs do hit the High Templars. The Vikings are left on their lonesome against Vikings, because the Phoenix are being corralled and killed. And it's going to be really bad for herO. Let's see. 20 army supply lead for Cure. Not going to have the upgrade lead. Everything's going to even out before the engagement happens. Warp Prism's carrying around 1 High Templar. That is it. Gets a Storm on some pretty chonky units. And once again, similar to what was that, the first game, there are medevacs with energy. A lot of energy at that, too. So no mass feedbacks coming in. Very slow going. Cure not... eager to push into an army that, is clearly prepared. It's spread out. It's got the shield body overcharge. The High Templars, fairly spread out, I guess. Plus, herO's been so good about always having backup High Templars. So yeah, Kira's not going to push into that. Just going to take the Zelnaga. He's got another army off to the left side. However, he now has a maxed out supply, so he is feeling like he can divvy up the army successfully. Tutu's on the way, 4th base as well. Some tanks back at home to defend, going into a big macro game. herO will also then be allowed to max out. Is he going with the triple robo or is that double robo? That is double robo. So he will be eventually prepared to rebuild his robo army, but still no disruptors. I guess that's what was really bothering me. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But that was what's the stalker count now being built up to. That was also a bother because the Phoenix were dying. Now the stalker count's up, and I would say hopefully disruptors would be on the way. And then you got a real Protoss late game army. But no disruptors makes me quite concerned. Might not be the most enjoyable unit to face, but they are definitely necessary for Protoss. These Storms not really doing all that much. herO's trying to split his army to combat Cure's split, which seems okay so far. Apparently there are 2 War Prisms on the field, or was that the... Hey, that was 2. So this one's gonna die as well. Goodbye, eventually. And Kira is still looking for that optimal engagement. That's the 3rd War Prism, for love of God! That's also dead. And again, no extended Thermal Lance. But the Colossus apparently not gonna get gunned down, even losing out in that range. A couple of force fields helping out there. The shield battery was sniped, but there's a backup one in the back. It's all very careful. It's all very tentative. They're just waiting at each other out. Which, God, I'd feel so much better for herO if he had freaking disruptors. If he had disruptors helping him, and was using this time of relative safety, I suppose, to go into a Dark Shrine with Blink, I'd feel a lot better for herO. But it feels like herO, he's not dying. He's not actively dying. He's not necessarily taking advantage of not actively dying. His supply has grown to match that of Cure's. And his upgrades lead currently, they will be even in about 20 seconds. Cure has been forced back home. herO's army collects together, trying to hit this upgrade timing, but actually, Cure is going to have 2-2 versus 1-2. herO doesn't recognize this, and herO might be surrounded. Cure is going to have 3 angles of attack if you include the SCVs. Here we go. herO is going to back away down the ramp through that choke, giving him the best opportunity possible, but is it really still going to be the best opportunity? No disruptors to help out. Everything gets EMP'd. The heavy immortal count is impressive when it actually hits the freaking Marauders. It hits anything else, and it's not as good. And then when they're left alone, it's easy peasy for the Terran army to tear this one apart. herO is not going to be winning with that particular push, and at that rate, he's not going to be winning at all. Down 50 supply, now building disruptors. I really think disruptors earlier on would have been so much more useful. Not only to literally attack the Terran army, I mean, that's what they're best at, I suppose, but for just buying time. As soon as herO realized that he was about to be surrounded, he backs up over here, he shoots at the disruptor, that buys him an extra 2 seconds. He sends out another disruptor shot as he runs away, and that buys him a successful retreat. But now he's, you know, he's only desperately getting disruptors. Oh my god, the storm's coming down, but still might not be enough. herO now down over 90 supply. Come on, come on. No, I'm a liar at me. Okay. 70 supply, and that's going to be it. GG. Kier will win game 5. And actually a fairly unique PvT. I mean, I cast a lot of PvTs, and I have not seen PvTs look quite like that. herO is still trying to experiment and do some slightly different things. Even though he won 2 out of 5 of these games and made some other games kind of close, I never really had a lot of faith in what herO was doing. But I'm glad that he's experimenting and trying to push the envelope in some ways. So Kier will, as always, be dominant in TVP. GG's. That was the Korean Open Cup number 173 or something like that. GG's. Hope you guys enjoyed the casts. Like, subscribe, follow. Bye.